So welcome to my next review of the Doctor Who Target novels, the newest wave that was published earlier this month. And this time it's The Christmas Invasion, which was adapted by Jenny T Colgan as an adaptation of the story by Russell T Davies. I will read the blurb, because why not? When a British space probe is intercepted by a sinister alien vessel on the eve of Christmas, it marks the beginning of an audacious invasion of the Earth by the Sigrax, horrifying marauders from beyond the stars. Within hours, a third of humanity stands on the brink of death and not a single shot fired. Our planet needs a champion, but the Doctor is not fit for service. He's just regenerated, delirious in a new body and a dressing gown. Forced into his battered shoes is his friend Rose Tyler, a girl from a London council estate. Will she save the world from this nightmare before Christmas, or see it destroyed? This novel is based on a Doctor Who story which was originally broadcast on 25th of December 2005, featuring the 10th Doctor as played by David Tennant with his companion Rose Tyler. So, let's see, I've got notes as always. If you did watch my review of Rose, which I did a couple of days ago I think, this adaptation is a bit shorter. This is 164 pages, or 168 pages if you include the afterword that Jenny Colgan wrote at the end. Yeah, I think the thing to note mainly is that the difference between this and Rose was that Russell T Davies himself wrote the book for Rose, which was based on the story he wrote himself, whereas in this case it's someone else writing the novelisation of his story, which is why The Christmas Invasion is definitely basically what we see on screen written down, which is not a bad thing by any means. It's a very good adaptation, and I did think it was a weird choice for one of the first New Who novelisations to be The Christmas Invasion, but the more I thought about it, the more it makes sense, because it's David Tennant's first main story, and he's one of the most popular Doctors, so it does make sense. And one thing I didn't mention in my last review was the actual covers of the books. So all this kind of style. I really like them, I think they're really cool. I like the shiny logo and everything, but it does annoy me that they've used the Series 2 Rose with the shorter hair as the cover for both Rose and The Christmas Invasion, which does annoy me. And this is also the Series 4 / Specials David Tennant on the front. Bit annoying, but I can look past it. But yeah, I really like the covers. And one thing I also really love about The Christmas Invasion in particular is the chapter titles, because each chapter title is a Christmas song, which I really enjoy. One of the chapters is called Oh Christmas Tree, and if you're familiar with The Christmas Invasion, you know what happens in that chapter. Yeah, so going back to the fact that Jenny Colgan wrote this novelisation, not Russell T Davies himself, she does actually ask him questions. She mentions in the special thanks at the end of the book, "Thank you to Russell T Davies for being hilarious and answering all my questions." So it's nice to know that she did actually go to him to ask questions about this, but even so, we don't get that much new stuff, I think, because Russell himself doesn't get to actually write it and have as much of an input as he did when he adapted Rose. But at the same time, The Christmas Invasion was an hour long, whereas Rose was 45 minutes, so I feel like he did most of the stuff with The Christmas Invasion that he wanted to do anyway. So maybe that's why we don't get loads of new material in the novel. And one of the good things about the fact that The Christmas Invasion novelisation is pretty much exactly the same as the episode of the show is that I didn't really have things I kind of liked and kind of disliked at the same time. I had clear positives and negatives, so that makes this review a lot easier, and it will be a lot shorter than Rose, I'm sure. God, I rambled on for that Rose. So yeah, might as well just get right into it. I'm going to start with the positives. There are more positives than negatives. I really enjoyed this adaptation a lot. And one of the big positives is obviously the closeness to the TV story. Jenny Colgan, she's written like Doctor Who books before, but obviously this is her first Target novelisation. But you can tell from her little afterword that she's a big Doctor Who fan, and she was kind of the perfect choice for not only for writing a Target novelisation, but for writing the Christmas Invasion as well. She has a really sweet little reason for wanting to do the Christmas Invasion. So I really like that. And obviously another note, spoilers if you haven't seen the Christmas Invasion, but I don't know why you would watch this if you haven't. But just throwing it out there just in case. I'm not really going to spoil anything new, because there isn't loads of new material, like I said. So yeah, one thing I really liked was the closeness to the TV story, the accuracy. Because sometimes, like in the Rose novel, some bits of dialogue were changed like unnecessarily that kind of annoyed me. We don't really get that here, which I really like. I mean, we do have like some lines changed a bit, and some extra dialogue, maybe slightly expanded scenes here and there, but it's like pretty spot on. So yeah, I liked that. I liked most of the expanded scenes we got as well. Well, pretty much all of them. So yeah, we got a bit of extra dialogue in a couple of scenes just to flesh it out a bit more. Some deleted scenes that didn't make it into the final cut of the Christmas Invasion have been included in this, which I really like. And one thing that really surprised me, but it was a brilliant surprise, was the Children in Need special they did that was set between the Parting of the Ways and the Christmas Invasion. Obviously, it was a scene between the 10th Doctor and Rose in the TARDIS, like bridging the gap between those two episodes. That's included. That is a chapter in this novelisation, which I thought was a really nice touch, and I like that. And it kind of makes sense because it beefs up the 10th Doctor's role a bit more, because obviously he's not in a huge part of the story. So I really loved that that was in there. That was a really nice surprise. And I think one of the most successful things was adding of the thought processes of some characters. It made some character decisions make a lot more sense, and I think whatever you feel about the Christmas Invasion, and why I think you should probably pick up the novel, is that I think for the most part the Christmas Invasion works better as a book than it does on TV, because obviously you can't really see or understand absolutely every character motivation when you're watching it on a screen, because you can't hear what they're thinking. But Jenny Colgan does a really good job of really telling the reader how the characters are feeling, and it kind of made me see the episode in a different way, which I really enjoyed. Because I've never really been a fan of Harriet Jones's sudden decision to kill the Cigarettes, and I know a lot of people weren't happy about that character choice, but the Christmas Invasion novelisation explains that quite a bit and justifies her decision, and I really like that a hell of a lot. Also, Rose gets a lot of her thought process. Obviously, she's kind of the main character in this story. We see a lot more about how she's trying to deal with the Doctor changing and how she feels like she's lost him, and it just makes a lot more sense, and you can really kind of feel for her in a sense. And also there's a really nice sequence where we see the Doctor's thought process as he's choosing his new outfit. Obviously we see it a bit in the actual episode, but it's a bit of a longer sequence in the novel, and it's really cool. I really like it a lot. It's nice seeing how Ten's head was going in that scene. It was a really cool little insight. Yeah, and obviously the whole Harriet and Torchwood thing, her decision there. We get a lot more insight into that and why she chose to do it, which is actually because of a connection she had with Major Blake, which is one of the two men the Cigarettes leader killed when they were all beamed up to the ship. And it's a nice little segue, because the other thing I really liked about the novel was the added backstories we got for some of the characters. There is like a really nice little connection between Harriet and Major Blake. We kind of learn how they met for the first time. And we see that Blake's death actually really affects Harriet, and that influences her decision to kill the Cigarettes. And it's really, really nice. I liked that a lot. It was a very small little passage, but it was really cool, and it made Blake kind of a more interesting character at the same time. And the other two main characters that we got more of a beefed up role for, in particular, was Llewellyn? Is that how we say his name? The other guy that was killed by the Cigarettes leader, that guy, the guy who's in charge of the Guinevere 1 satellite, he gets a lot. He's actually quite a major role in the book until obviously he dies. But we learn a lot more about him, like a lot, and he was probably actually one of my favourite characters in the book. We get a lot of backstory for him, and we learn a lot more about how he works and how he ticks. And we also, surprisingly, get a lot about Sally, who was the blonde woman who was like working with Harriet and all that, and she was a victim of the blood control and stuff like that. We learn a bit about her, and her husband, boyfriend, whatever, her romantic history. And there's also kind of a romance / connection, attraction between her and Llewellyn, which is very unexpected. But Jenny Colgan makes it seem quite natural in the book. And it's actually really sweet and kind of tragic, because obviously Llewellyn ends up dead and Sally survives the story. So we do kind of revisit her at the end, and she's kind of mourning him a bit, and it's really sad, but it didn't need to be there. But I think it added a lot more like layers to both those characters. It felt quite natural to me. So aside from that, we also had a couple of new characters who were working on the Guinevere 1 satellite. They're not in it a huge amount. They work in the same way in this as the addition of Mickey's friends were in the Rose novelisation. They're not in it a lot, but they're a bit of fun, and it beats up the story a little bit, and they're kind of more used to advance Llewellyn as a character more than anything. But they still have a couple of funny moments that I really enjoyed. One of them's actually in a wheelchair, one of the new people we meet, and one of the other guys is a victim of blood control. He's on the roof, so we see this guy in the wheelchair try and get to the roof and like cling on to his friend. And it's really sweet in that way. I liked that a lot. And also one major positive I had, and this is my last positive for now, the Cigarettes came across very, very well in this novelisation. I think they worked better in this than they do in the actual TV story. I found them really, really threatening in the book compared to on TV. I like them in the actual episode, but I think they fare better, as a lot of Dr. Who's probably would in the novelisation. They seem like a bit more of a threat, because they're described in a bit more of a terrifying way, and the deaths of Blake and Llewellyn are quite graphically explained. Actually, I've marked a bit of that out. I've marked a bit of Llewellyn's death out. I really liked how this was written. I thought Colgan did a great job with this. But yeah. This is a little quote. "It happened so fast. The alien raised suddenly a whip from his side and lashed it out with a sharp electrical crack of blue light. It fastened around Daniel Llewellyn's neck, burning and tightening at the same time. Llewellyn let out a scream which faded to nothing. His body shuddered, and then every dream he'd ever had, every plan he had ever made, every thought he'd ever entertained, every step on the path of life he'd chosen, was no more. Every cell of him flew on the wind, as the good man he'd been exploded into a pile of smoking bones scattering over the floor." I really liked how that was described. And yeah, the cigarettes come across really well here, which is why I'm so keen to get more of these New Who Target novelisations, because I think some villains that I may not have been threatened by or interested in some stories could be beefed up and work a lot better on pages as opposed to on screen. Yeah, they just had much more of a presence and a looming threat, I felt. I mean, the dialogue that they have is kind of unchanged, but it's the looming kind of presence of them that is really, really effective. So those are my big positives about the book. So if you have seen the episode and you've seen the Children in Need clip and you've seen the deleted scenes on the DVD box set or whatever, you have kind of seen 97% of what's in the novel, the other 3% being the Llewellyn and Sally romance and the addition of some Guinevere 1 workers. Do have a couple of kind of nitpicks about the novel. It's all character things, really. I would have liked more of Jackie and Mickey's thought processes. We do get a bit of insight, particularly with Jackie as opposed to Mickey. Mickey's kind of sidelined in this story. He doesn't have a great deal more to offer than he did in the actual story, which is kind of a shame. We do get some stuff, but not as much as I would have liked. So that would have been interesting. But my biggest criticism, I think, and the biggest missed and wasted opportunity is Alex as a character. Alex is Harriet Jones's assistant in Christmas Invasion, he was the guy who translated the cigarette's language before the Doctor woke up, and he's the one the Doctor whispers, "Don't you think she looks tired too?" It's that guy. He gets absolutely nothing new in this story, I don't think. Maybe one or two throwaway lines, but we don't learn anything about kind of his history with Harriet, or his family, or his background in any way. So it's kind of bizarre that we learn more stuff about Sally, or these new Guinevere 1 workers, and yet we learn nothing new about Alex, which is kind of strange. So that was a bit of a shame. I would have liked to learn more about him, but he gets nothing new. But yeah, that was really the only things I didn't like. Just from a character standpoint. I mean, I can get over the Jackie and Mickey stuff, because we've seen so much of them in Doctor Who anyway. I feel like we know a lot about them, and especially because the Rose novelisation did a great job, especially with Mickey and giving him a fresh backstory. Whereas Alex is only ever in the Christmas Invasion, so I would have liked to have learned more about him. But oh well, it's done now. So yeah, that's basically all I have to say about the Christmas Invasion. It's a really, really enjoyable read and a brilliant adaptation, a very faithful adaptation of the Christmas Invasion. It might be a good thing or a bad thing to some people that we don't really get anything that isn't available to the public in terms of new content, except for a romance and some minor characters. But it's still really, really enjoyable, and it still made me look at the Christmas Invasion in a different way, just like the Rose novelisation did. So yeah, overall, I would definitely recommend you go out and buy it. I think you should probably go out and buy all of them, really, because it might change your mind about how you feel about a certain story, or you might actually end up liking a certain story because you've read the novelisation of it. I definitely have kind of a more of appreciation for some of the characters in the Christmas Invasion, having read the novelisation. I definitely like Llewellyn a lot more as a character, and Sally, and kind of the decision with what Russell T Davies did with Harriet Jones as a character in the Christmas Invasion, I'm a lot more at peace with now, because I was really disappointed that happened. but now I really understand it. And we also do get a few extra little bits of character here and there throughout the whole book, which I really enjoyed. But yeah, I really like that they added the children needs scene in particular. And obviously that and the cigarettes coming off very well as a villain are probably my two big takeaways and positives about the novel. So yeah, would have liked a bit more character stuff, but I'm really happy with how it turned out. I thought it was really good. Oh god, I'm getting coke dripping all over me. Anyway, I thought it was a brilliant adaptation. I thought Jenny Colgan did a really good job with it. And if there's any other stories that are close to her heart that she'd like to adapt, I hope they let her do it, because she did a stand-up job. That is The Christmas Invasion. I can't recommend it enough. I'd say it's a more successful adaptation than Rose was in terms of the novel. I still really enjoyed them both, but I think I got more out of The Christmas Invasion because there wasn't as much stuff that annoyed me. I don't think there were as many flaws. I mean, The Christmas Invasion's far from my favourite Doctor Who episode, but I think I like it a lot more having read the novel, so I think it's done its job. But yeah, that's The Christmas Invasion, and that is the second of the 4 Target novels I've got reviewed. The next one I'm going to be doing is The Day of the Doctor by Stephen Moffat, and it really is by Stephen Moffat, both the episode and the novelisation. It's definitely a longer book, so it will probably be like a week or so before I get a review up for it, because I read The Christmas Invasion in a day, like a couple of hours. And I know there's already stuff. It's going to be an interesting review, Day of the Doctor, because there's already a lot of stuff I've read and seen before the books came out that I'm not really a fan of. But yeah, we'll get into it. I really like The Day of the Doctor as a story. So I'm looking forward to seeing how the whole novel comes about and ties up. But yeah, Christmas Invasion is really good. I highly recommend you check it out. Thanks for watching.